to some people join, but welcome, welcome. So excited about this conversation because it is going to be great.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I'm
having you
so
back on the show, I'm so excited because we had a great discussion the last time, and I think we really helped a lot of people.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, I'm really excited to be back, Sheena. I'm excited to continue our conversation and talk about new issues, new legal issues. I'm thrilled to be back. So
That's great. That's great. So, for those who have not seen the last thing that we did together, this is Attorney Joe. That's what I call him anyway. So for short. um, so I'm going to have him properly introduce himself in just a moment. But I want to start off by saying thank you guys for joining, and I'm really just appreciate being able to be in this place to do this because I love having these community discussions. I feel like it's very well needed in all of our communities to have like groundwork conversation about firearms and firearm ownership and use and everything around it because honestly we all have to be very responsible with them, and the best way to do it is to be equipped with knowledge. So this is where it starts in the
that's
home.
right. That's right. And so for those of you who weren't on the last one, my name is Joseph Scrofano. I'm the founder of Scrofano Law PC. We're a criminal defense firm where we represent individuals under investigation or charged with a crime in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. It's as Sheena's saying, it is really good to have knowledge so that you never have to call me because you don't want to be in a situation where you have to call me because that means you're charged with a crime or you're under investigation. So these types of events are so great because it gives people knowledge and lets them know, what are the common situations that you can get into that can put yourself on the wrong side of the law if you're a firearm owner and help prevent you from ever getting into those situations. So,
All facts, and thank you for that, Attorney Joe. Honestly, so opening up the show with I know last week was I guess I would say a bye week. I kind of just took a little break, the holidays. I'm glad I did. I didn't realize how tired I was after Thanksgiving preparations and things. I didn't have a lot of guests, but I had enough. I was tired.
sure, if
A
you
lot
like
of things.
me, my we didn't eat till 10 o'clock at my house. We actually
Oh my gosh.
we put the bird in a little bit too late, and so it
Oh
was a
no.
later Thanksgiving. But it was still a delicious meal and good to have family around. And Thanksgiving
Yeah.
is one of my favorite holidays because I do like to eat. So
Mine's too. Actually, it is my favorite. Although the whole festivities, what it's about, is kind of the more you know kind of thing. Um,
right,
but
right,
the what I celebrate is the family, the gathering, and the food, of course. And
sure,
that's why it's my favorite. So hey,
yeah.
enough cries. Welcome, welcome. So, as we have people joining, let me properly introduce myself for anyone who has never been here before. First of all, welcome and thank you for joining. I'm Mrs. Trouble, sometimes also called Sheena, as that's my real name. um, and I just wanted to have a platform where all of us can come and talk about different issues in our gun community and things that are specifically to women in a lot of cases as well. So, as I know I have a lot of guys that supports the channel and who watch diligently, I appreciate you joining and taking notes and helping all the women that's in your lives for all the things that we do go over. Today's discussion, thankfully, is for everyone. It's not specific to women, but it is for everyone. So I think everyone would take something from it. So what we'll be discussing today, due to the holidays, and hi to May, is that to May? I hope I said it right. um, but I what we'll be discussing today is traveling for the holidays. You want to put on your thinking cap. You want to understand what it is and what it means to have a concealed carry permit. Through and through. And as you travel to different states, you may find that there are different things you need to know. So we're going to go through that today. And if technology is willing, we're going to also have a representative from US Lawshield today to give us very detailed information about their program. And she is watching. So if you want to go ahead and comment in there, Miss Cara, that would be great. So, but we'll have her join in a little while to give you guys more details. So definitely stay tuned to that. So, Attorney Joe, let's start with this. What does the concealed carry allow you to do? And I know you're speaking specifically for DC and Maryland right now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it allows you to basically carry a firearm concealed on your person. Where I practice law in district in DC and Maryland, there are very strict gun laws where we're at. We actually have a crime in the District of Columbia called carrying a pistol without a license, and it's a felony. And I love your topic of traveling during the holidays if you're a concealed carry permit holder, because I will tell you one of the number one common scenarios of people I see or who come to me and end up having to hire me because they've been charged with a crime are folks who travel to different states and or in the case of the district to the district, and they don't know or look up the gun laws of where they're going and whether they have reciprocity. So I'll just give you a very common scenario that I get, in my practice, and that's someone comes to DC or Maryland from a different state where the gun laws are a lot more lax, or just what I might say more normal, for the considering for the rest of the country. They might come from North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, Texas, wherever. They come to DC for tourism. They want to see the White House. They want to see the monuments. And they just assume that because they have a carry permit in their home state, that they can bring their firearm to the district. And then they end up getting pulled over for a minor traffic violation. And the first thing they do is usually tell the officer that they've got a firearm in the vehicle, because that's something they've been trained to do in their concealed carry class back home. And boom, next thing they know, they're arrested, held in jail overnight, sleeping on a hard cot, with a dirty bologna sandwich in the central cell block, and being brought out in front of a judge in shackles the next day, and are shocked to find out that they're actually charged with a felony. I
Mm.
have throughout, and it happens in all people coming to visit family, people coming for tourism reasons, people coming for work related travel. And so it is super important for any responsible gun owner to know if they're traveling with their firearm, am I legal in the destination? Am I legal in the states that I'm going to pass through to get to my destination? And so having that knowledge and being aware of that is super important.
Definitely. I couldn't have said that better myself, honestly. And I literally just spoke to a potential client for my training company who was visiting. No, he moved from a whole nother state and he thought that he could carry in DC with his pistol. And I was like, please stop. Please
Yep.
don't.
Yep.
Because you have a permit. I forget what state it was, but yeah, I was like, no, please don't
Both
take my class.
Yeah, both DC and Maryland do not give reciprocity to any other location. And in fact, in DC, they not only charge you for the gun, they charge you for the bullets. There's a crime called unregistered or unauthorized possession of ammunition. So you have to, any firearm you have has to be registered, and if you carry it outside the home or your place of business, you have to have a carry permit. Even if you're an out-of-state resident, you have to have a DC concealed carry permit, and you have to register your firearms if you want to bring them with you. Now, there's
Mhm,
another interesting topic
mhm,
involving travel if you're a concealed carry permit holder. There is actually a federal law. We call it FOPA. It's the Firearm Owners Protection Act. And
mhm,
DC actually has its own very similar statute in the DC code that's kind of mirrored after this federal law. And it basically is kind of a way to protect people who are traveling through states where they might not be allowed to have a firearm. So, what the rules of the Firearm Owners Protection Act are is, let's say you're starting off in North Carolina and you're traveling to Pennsylvania, right? And you're lawful in North Carolina and you're lawful in Pennsylvania, but you got to go through DC or you got to go through Maryland, which are states where you may not be lawful. You are actually allowed to travel through those states with your firearm, but you have to meet a series of conditions. And these conditions include making sure that the gun is unloaded and that it's not within reach of the driver's seat. And so the safest place to have it is in a trunk. Unload it in a trunk, in a lockbox. It doesn't have to be in a lockbox, but it's a good practice to do it. If you don't have a trunk, let's say you have a SUV or some type of car that's kind of got a hatchback like that, then you do have to have it in a lockbox. And the biggest thing is that it's not within your reach, but you can actually you're protected under federal law to drive through places where you may not be allowed to carry or possess a firearm, as long as your starting point and your end point, you're legal and you're just passing through. So when I get a lot of questions, or when I'm dealing with individuals um, who are traveling and want to know, can I carry in DC? It's like, you can drive through DC if you meet the following conditions, but you can't. I tell people not to stop. There's some case law out there that says, like, okay, you can, as long as you're getting gas or this or that. As a lawyer, I'm averse to risk. I'm trying to give people advice
Right.
to make sure that they don't get arrested. So I say, just to be careful. If you got to come through DC, if you got to come through Maryland, just go straight through. You know.
So let's just cut for a second to go to these comments here. I see someone asked, will we do a live stream tomorrow? And unfortunately, no, I'm sorry, not tomorrow, next Friday. I'll be back next Friday. And hopefully, Attorney Joe joins me another day as well. I know it won't be next week, but maybe in a couple of months from now. Um, and then let's see, someone said, "Is it true to Trump? With Trump, all gun laws will be the same." Ooh, I wish that was true. Unfortunately, I don't even know that the president has that much power to make them all the same in each state. That would be great, but I
If
don't think so.
They'd have to be, yeah, I mean, they got to pass a law through the Congress, and he'd have to sign it. It'd have to, I mean, there's model legislation out there that people have advocated for, but no, just the election of Trump is not going to lead to that automatically happening. You're still going to be in, if you come into a place like DC with a firearm when you don't have a permit and you're carrying, you're at a big risk. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter who the president of the United States is for that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you with that. And as far as do we think it's BS, the laws, well, that's his job. Maybe he may not want to comment on that, but I will comment on it. I do think it's a lot of BS with the laws, but
No,
but
I mean, I'll comment too. Yeah, yeah. No, I'll comment. I see what, and that's the thing. I see what happens to the folks who go through this. I see it impact
Mhm.
their jobs, and 9 times out of 10, it's a law-abiding citizen who just, didn't have the forethought or the foresight to think, oh, I better look up DC gun laws before I go there. Which is also, and you'll hear from Cara, why US Lawshield is such an important product, or is such a powerful thing to be a part of if you're a gun owner, because you have access to all these like travel guides and PDFs and things like that you can get as part of your membership. You also have access to call, like there's what's called a non-emergency hotline, where let's say you're going to travel on a cross-country trip with your family, and you're going through you're going through XYZ state. You can actually get an attorney to call you and answer your questions in advance before you leave, so you can know and be sure that you're complying with the law, and you don't end up having to call me, or being in one of these situations. And so, but to the point of whether it's BS, I mean, absolutely, I see it. It is, beyond me that somebody crosses an imaginary line, and what they're doing on one side of the imaginary line is perfectly legal and perfectly okay and acceptable, and then they cross over another imaginary line, and now all of a sudden they're charged with a felony offense. So yeah.
That's the crazy part about it. Now, someone did also comment about them hearing that it was like a year of jail per bullet. I know you just touched on that just a tiny bit. Can you just reinnovate that?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not surprised people have heard that. It's not that bad, fortunately, but the main crime that people get charged with is what's called carrying a pistol without a license. That's a felony offense. It carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in jail. That doesn't mean that that's what somebody's going to get if they get convicted of it. That's what the maximum the maximum legal sentence a judge could get. Somebody still could get probation. It just depends on the judge. It depends on if you have a good and savvy lawyer like myself. If they also charge usually unregistered firearm, unregistered ammunition, and those are misdemeanor charges. And again, it just kind of depends your background, if you have a record, what other facts are involved in the situation. So no, it's not one bullet, or excuse me, it's not one year per bullet. But if you are a convicted felon, it's pretty much across the board in the United States that you can't possess a firearm. Doesn't matter if you're in Texas, Florida, or DC. If you have a felony conviction on your record and you get caught, you could end up getting charged with something called felon in possession, and that usually carries mandatory, 1 to 3 years in jail. So, but no, it's not one year per bullet by any stretch. So,
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. And
sure.
then someone asks, first, is it hard to be a lawyer? I think that's a good
Oh.
question.
It's hard, but it's also rewarding. It's hard because I deal with, and especially in criminal defense, I deal with the weight of a lot of people's troubles. Somebody's got a security clearance, and they get into some trouble like this, and it's like, if I get convicted, I'm going to lose my job, and then I'm going to lose my clearance, and then I lose my job, and so the weight of it is hard and it's stressful, but it is very rewarding to be able to help people when they're in need and when they're in trouble. There's when I became a criminal defense lawyer, I had people in my family asking me the typical question you get as a criminal defense lawyer, like, how can you defend these people, or how can you defend criminals or something like that? And I'm like, most of my clients, most of the people I deal with, are usually people who just either made a mistake or they're at the wrong place in the wrong time, and it's like they just end up in this very oppressive system, trying to navigate through it with my help and to try to get through the situation without their lives being torn apart. And so it's
Mhm.
it's hard, but it's also rewarding. You know.
Yeah, I think similar to that feeling when I made it known what it is that I do for a profession as far as training people to use firearms. I did have loved ones and friends to say, "How could you be out there training people to basically unalive others?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "That's not what I'm doing.
Right,
That's not what I'm
right,
doing at all. I'm
right.
actually teaching people and some people are on this call right now who are students of mine, and they will tell you, I tell you, please let that firearm be your last choice. Please, your job is not out there to unalive people. Your job is to defend yourself, defend the lives of your loved ones, and that's it. Not property, that's it. And that's the only time that you should be using it. So that's one of the things that I do get hit with sometimes with people when I get to know people there. That's one of their questions and concerns.
Yeah.
How
Well,
can I
you're
do that?
Well, you're giving them good advice. I mean, I tell people the same thing. It's like, you know, it's not a tool for conflict resolution.
Right.
In Maryland, for example, and DC has something similar as well. There's a crime called possession of a firearm during a crime of violence. And possession of a firearm during a crime of violence carries a mandatory minimum of 5 years in prison. That's a mandatory minimum, meaning the
Mm,
judge could think you're the greatest person in the world, but if you are charged and convicted of that offense, the judge doesn't have a choice. They have to give you 5 years in jail. And in Maryland, brandishing can get you that. Now, in Virginia, on the other hand, brandishing is a misdemeanor. But if you brandish in Maryland, and you end up getting arrested and in the system and you get convicted, it's a 5-year mandatory minimum. So it is. I tell people, if you think, only do it if you think you're going to die.
mm,
Absolute last resort. Um, you know.
yeah. And that's definitely the same advice I give. And just for clarification, for anyone who may not be familiar with the term brandishing,
Mm.
it is literally just showing that firearm, and bringing it out or waving it around, hinting to it,
Yep.
that
Pointing
also can,
it, anything. Yep. Yep.
yes,
Yep.
any of those things would be considered brandishing. And I know that's one of the number one things that the attorneys in US Lawshield system goes through. Um, so one other person asked, what is the advantage of having a Utah concealed carry? So I think
I
I
mean,
can answer that
yeah.
too. But
That's a good
what
one.
piece do you have for that? um,
I mean, I was just gonna say, I just know because I've had clients. I know that Utah gives a reciprocity to like the most states, but you go ahead. This more your.
Yes, that's honestly the only benefit I would say, depending on what area you live in, it could not really make a difference for you because realistically, if you can get let's say I don't remember the number of states. Let's say they do 40, okay? Something about 40 states, okay? Let's say you get 40 states, but within that 40 states, are you going to visit Utah? Are you going to visit Wyoming? Are you going to visit Idaho? These are places that people in the DMV area, I know specifically, don't tend to travel to on a normal basis. Most people are not traveling to those areas. So, getting the Utah permit, you just need to look at the reciprocity map. You need to see what makes sense for you. Focus on the places in which you actually are going to travel to. So look at the reciprocity map from your home state first. See if that covers the places in which you typically travel. And if it doesn't, then go and find out what states do. And that way you'll see what makes sense for you. But I wouldn't go so far as to specifically get a Utah permit unless it's specific states there that are within that reciprocity map that you want to get that other states may not be allowing or having.
Right. And to be clear, Utah's not going to mean anything in DC or Maryland for, like I mean, I've had that situation before where it's like a client who had a Utah permit arrested and charged with felony carrying a pistol without a license in DC. Now that kind of stuff can sometimes help in negotiating with the prosecutor, right? If you've got a permit in a different state, they're not necessarily going to throw the book at you the same way that they would if you're just out there, completely illegal carrying. But Utah's not going to get you off the hook in DC or Maryland.
Okay, so before we jump into having Miss Cara join, because I do want her to touch a little bit more about those services that US Lawshield offers as far as the non-emergency line. I even used it today. You actually happen to be
Yeah,
my attorney to call me today
I
to
said I'm
ask
gonna
my
talk to her
questions.
tonight. We'll
Yes. So I love that line. Oh my gosh, it's giving me so much clarity. I'll try to do my research first, but if it's something I'm not sure about, I'll give a call. Like I ask.
and you
um,
get a live attorney. I mean, it's like it's not a Google search. It's not like you get called. You get a call from an attorney who answers your legal question. Yeah.
hmm So before we jump over to Miss Carr, I do want to go through this last question I see here. James asks, "Is a warning shot illegal? I don't want to shoot someone, so I think it could help." So.
So, the way I would never advise a warning shot. Really, it's very very difficult. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where I think it makes sense to do that. And it's not it's not that something in this arena is like it's illegal or illegal, kind of black and white. It really depends on self defense. Like
Mhm.
it depends on all the facts and circumstances surrounding the situation. And just speaking to the laws of self defense in DC, in Maryland, for example, there has to be two things for you to act in self-defense. One, the amount of force that you use, or multiple things. One, the amount of force you use has to be reasonable, right? If somebody pushes you, you can't fire a warning shot at them. If somebody pushes you, you can't shoot them. I mean, it's not reasonable to react that way, right? You
Mhm.
also, and what is reasonable? It's it's what like I always think about reasonable like this. If some complete stranger was watching your actions, on a video and they could hear everything perfectly and they could see everything perfectly, would they watch that video and go, I think that amount of force was reasonable, or I think what that person did in that situation was reasonable? Because that's what a jury will be deciding in a trial, is if your conduct was reasonable. So that's one thing. And that's what we call like objective, right? So under the circumstances, do you have an objective fear for your safety? Do you have an objective fear that you will lose your life or have serious bodily harm, right? There's also a subjective standard that you have to also meet. You have to subjectively be in fear of
Mhm.
what's going to happen. You have to actually be afraid in the circumstance. And if some stranger was watching you on a security footage, they would have to objectively believe that it was warranted for you to be afraid and that the amount of force that you used was reasonable under the circumstances. So it all depends on, the facts and circumstances. And I know it's kind of a lawyerly answer to give that, but it's an answer to a lot of legal questions typically are maybe or it
Yeah.
depends. But I do say warning shots like you're going to end up arrested. In a place like
Yeah.
DC or Maryland, you're going to end up charged with possession of a firearm during a crime of violence, and maybe you end up succeeding with a defense, but you got to go through the whole process. You got to go through
Mhm.
sitting in jail. You got to go through trying to get out on release. You got to hire a lawyer. Sometimes lawyers, could cost 10, 20, 50, $100,000, right? And so you got that expense. You got the fear and anxiety of not knowing whether you're going to go to jail or not. So as somebody who regularly deals in the criminal justice system, I always tell people the best way to be and the best, way to comport yourself is in a way that you don't ever end up in the criminal justice system. Because even if you win in the criminal justice system, you still lose.
Mhm. Yeah, that's terrible. So I do have to second that. I do explain that to my students, and I do give a direct answer. I say no. I
Well,
just straight
the
say
warning
no.
shots, yeah,
It,
no, I,
yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, because I'm not in a legal situation, I'm not a legal advisor. I always say that to my students. But my best advice to that is definitely no. And a warning shot, to be clear on that, what that could mean for some people, it could mean a shot to like a limb, like an arm or a leg, versus shooting in the torso area or head. It also could mean to shoot up in the air. Now, shooting up in the air, I know that's a whole nother legal battle, and that's definitely a no-no. And
Well,
that
and
doesn't matter where you go.
we actually have a crime called unlawful discharge. I mean, we got everything. Every gun crime you can imagine in DC, we got it's unlawful discharge. That's even if it's not a warning shot, you just fire into the air, something like that. You could get charged with that. I mean, I do agree with you. It yeah. That's a clear cut, but just in other circumstances involving the firearm, you got to think about the self defense element, which again, is going to be based on what your subjective fear is at the time and whether
Mhm.
your response or what you do to protect yourself is viewed as objectively reasonable.
And that brings me to my next point. I always tell my students, if you were in fear of your life, if you really thought it was you or that other person, would you do a warning shot?
Right.
And that's what you have to ask yourself, because at the end of the day, you should be pleading, I had no other option. This was my only option. So if you felt like you had another option, then maybe you shouldn't be using a gun in the first place.
That's right. And it should never be a tool like some type of intimidation tool, or it's
Exactly.
like I said, it's not a tool for conflict resolution. It's something to protect yourself when you think you're going to die. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do right now is just switch. I'm gonna have you to jump off for just a second, but just stay near, and I'm gonna have Miss Cara to jump on now. Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, I'll be back and I will see y'all shortly.
All right. So yeah, we're trying to get this situated here. It worked. I'm so excited. Officially welcome, Miss
Thank
Cara.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Is it Cara or Cara?
It's Cara.
Kara, I apologize.
It's okay.
So I hate saying people's name wrong. I always like to get it right. So I'm going to properly introduce Miss Kara as our guest today on the show from US Lawshield. It's a company that I've worked with many years, and I really stand by the brand. Anyone who has taken our classes do know that I am like pushing this to you guys all the time, because I'm a true advocate. I believe that no one should own a gun, even if you're not going to conceal carry it, even if you decide to have it in a home only. No one should own a gun without having legal representation. And Ms. Carver can answer to exactly what type of services that US Law Shield offers. I'm going to have you take the floor, and I'm going to shush right now. Mhm.
traveling, but self-defense for US Law Shield could mean anything. It could mean you have to protect yourself with your hands, or a knife, or
One moment, Miss Cara. Sounds like we can't hear you. Do you want to maybe? Oh, he said now we can.
okay.
So, okay, we'll keep going.
So as far as US Law Shield, the way our coverage works, it's not just defending yourself with a firearm. It's any legal self-defense. And so, what we do as the original legal defense for self defense company is we cover your attorney fees. And people think that because they are defending themselves, that they're going to get out scot free and not have legal fees and not have to go through the court system. And unfortunately, that could be further from the truth. You could be a hero and save 10 other people's lives like Jack Wilson did in Texas at the church. A lot of people know about that incident. He You could be protecting yourself or someone you love, and even though there may be video surveillance that what you did was indeed in self-defense, you could still be in court facing 1 to 2 years of time losing like losing time out of your job, and those add up quick. The average time or the average legal cost attorney fees for a situation like this is around $50,000. The fact that you think that you're doing something that should just be allowed, which what it
Mhm.
is, to defend yourself, but there's still a lot of fees that go into that. And so US Law Shield has annual and monthly membership fees. And what you get with that is a 24/7, 365 emergency line. You're going to get a card that looks like this. And on the back of it, this is where you can waive your Miranda rights, and this is your emergency line. There's also a non-emergency line. I know you and Joe spoke about that. The thing about the emergency line is when you call that number, an attorney in your state answer that line. Our attorneys are all vetted. They know the legal system, they know gun laws front and back. Our attorneys have written the gun law books in their respective states. So they are on call 24/7, 365. Christmas Eve, if you're in a situation and you call that number on your card, your attorney is going to answer. So there's no third party answering. And the reason that's really important is because the minute you say something to anybody, it could be subpoenaed in court. But if you call your attorney, ideally your first call is 911. Your second call is your attorney. That you have immediate client attorney confidentiality right from the go. So everything you say is completely protected. Your attorney will talk for you. Most of the time, our attorneys can get to the scene of what's happening. Sometimes they beat the law enforcement there. So I like to think that we are your peace of mind. I know, I'm from upstate New York. I got my pistol permit years and years and years ago because I was a single mother of two little boys. And I needed to know that I could protect them if something happened. What I wasn't thinking, and what many people probably don't think, is that having your firearm, getting your concealed carry, yes, that's a responsible thing to do. But what good is it if I don't have 50 to $100,000 in the bank to cover all those legal fees, above and beyond the court fees and everything else like that? So that's where US Law Shield.
Mhm. One moment, Miss Cara. I'm not sure if you see the messages here. It's saying that you're in and out, and then also that you froze. And definitely on my side, you froze, but I can still hear you. So I'm wondering if maybe you refresh your screen, maybe it might fix itself. Um, the thing and it come back in. Okay. If it let me just do a sound check before we do that because I don't want to mess up anything. Guys, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear her okay? Maybe she's frozen with her video, but as long as you guys can hear her message, that's the biggest point. And I promise, Miss Cara, you're not stuck in a weird face expression. Okay? Yes.
Can we hear
Now
me?
you're moving. Yep.
Okay.
Now you're moving.
Should I log
Okay.
out and log back in?
Okay. They said they can't hear you. So let's just keep talking for a second because it looks like it fixed itself.
Okay.
Um, so we'll just keep talking for a moment. So I know you were talking about the non-emergency line. What
Yes.
is some of the other services?
So,
And you guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear her okay, or a thumbs down if you can't.
so the non-emergency line, I love the fact that we have, we call them independent program attorneys in every single state. They know the gun laws specific to that state. So US Law Shield is really big on educating our members and our partners. If there's going to be a gun law change or legislation that's in the works, chances are we're going to have our president, also an attorney, approach that topic, and you're going to get an email blast on that. Joe mentioned that, as a member, you also get some other educational benefits. We do have travel guides. Our partners all, if you take a class like Sheena, you can download a free student guide. It's a 91-page gun law guide, free of charge. Just because you're partnering with one of our partners, we want to make sure that you're educated because you don't get out of a ticket if you don't know something, right? Like ignorance doesn't help you. So we want to help educate our partners and our members. And also we offer legal seminars. So if you're in the area, wherever you are in the country, US Law Shield is in every state with the exception of 4, and that's just because every state has different laws when it comes to like insurance and insurance type memberships. But we offer legal seminars. So you can go on uslawshield.com. You can add, go into our events tab, look at the state that you're in, and you can find legal seminars within your state. So if you want to learn more on what happens if you do have to pull that trigger, or when is self-defense okay and when is it not okay, the legal seminars are different in every state, and our attorneys like Joe actually will teach these legal seminars, and someone like me will come in and say hi and become friends with you as well. So that is also a benefit being a member. We have I'm trying to think what else we have. I want to touch base on the pricing. um, so if you are somebody that just wants a US Lawshield membership so you can protect yourself, um, and be, legally protected, but you don't travel often, our base membership is about $24.95 a month. When you join through a partner like Sheena, not only do you get the first 30 days for free if you're in the state of like Maryland or Pennsylvania, for example, the first 30 days are free, and your initiation is waived because it's our thank you to Sheena for partnering with us, and she passes that down to you guys. If you're in the state of Virginia, unfortunately the laws are a little bit different. We can't offer the first 30 days for free, but the pricing is still $24.95. And then if you're in DC, the pricing is $10.95 to join. Every single month, $10.95. So right now, if you're in DC, like I would definitely jump on board. And then if you're somebody that travels a lot, we're talking about traveling during the holidays. If you're from New York, like I am, and you live in Virginia or North Carolina, and you have to get through a lot of different states to get home, you can do, our next package is called, offers you state to state coverage, so multi-state protection, and that's only $10 a month. You can add another family member, a spouse or a significant other that lives in the household with you for $19.95 a month. So we offer something for everybody. Your membership also includes a bail bonds. It also includes civil and criminal. So every like penny that would have been charged to you by an attorney, it's completely waived, whether it's civil or criminal. And we don't drop you if you take a plea deal, or if for whatever reason you're found guilty. We don't drop you. There's no We're not going to penalize you ever or turn our backs on you no matter what the case. We're going to cover your legal fees. We're going to support you. We're going to be your partners to walk you through this entire situation from the minute you call us to the very last time that you have to, have us by your side in court.
That's blessings. And this is exactly why I stand by this service. And I have some students that have had to utilize the services, and you guys were there to give peace of mind and help them get through life okay.
Good.
A lot better than what they would have been able to do for their own selves. I've even had to use the service in my own home.
Oh,
So it's one of those things where I definitely appreciate this service. And thank you so much for sharing that information. We have some people with some questions now.
okay. Let me see
So,
the questions.
um,
Oh,
so
so
the first question I saw is, do you have an app to help with travels?
So we have US Law Shield does have an app. I'm gonna be honest, it's still in the first or second phase, so it's a little glitchy, but there is a travel guide on the app when you download it and you put in your state. There is a travel guide that's digital on that app. We also have the gun law books that we're making those more digital as well because, as you know, gun laws legislations are always forever changing, and it's just easier to update something digitally to be more up to date than new editions every year and things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, DMV Renovations wants to know, why is DC so cheap?
Okay. So we US Law Shield never changed their pricing since they were founded. And what we're finding is so many people, we had a lot of add on coverages, like multi state, like second family, minor children. We had all these different coverages. So we would start our pricing at 1095 and then they would add a coverage and add a coverage and add a coverage. And so what we decided to do recently is package these memberships in tiers that were very popular just to make it a lot easier. And so that's why some of our states, most of our states are already in the new pricing where you get just way more with your coverage than the basic 1095. So DC hasn't had any pricing changes yet. You can still add on the other coverages. You can still add on bail bonds and things like that. But with the 2495, you get red flag coverage, bystander coverage, accidental discharge. So you can add all of those on in DC. It's just 295 or 395 extra per month.
Okay.
It's
And
more
thank
like
you for the explanation.
you're
Now,
welcome.
I will tell you guys, if you look on the comment section, look for the Trouble Defense logo, Trouble Defense LLC. You'll see that we have attached our code there. So that link is going to take you directly to their sign up page, and you'll be able to join using our promo code Trouble. And you'll get whatever special discount you offer, whatever state you're in. If it's in Virginia, unfortunately, no. But you'll still get the excellent service, and I really think it'll be a life-changing, great peace of mind for you. I know if you're anything like me, I always like to tell my students, I am not jail material, okay? I'm ready to defend my family, but I ain't really trying to be clink clink. I'm really not. So it's one of those things where it gives me a peace of mind to know that I can defend my family and have that type of protection. And I very well need it because the law just makes me nervous anyway, period. So
Yeah.
it really does. So I really gravitate to having something like this to give me a peace of mind when I know that I'm owning and handling a firearm day in and day out. And so I think it would be a great benefit for everyone's home, honestly. So if you guys have any more questions for Ms. Cara, definitely don't hesitate to put in the chat box area. I hope she would stick around, although we're going to bring Attorney Joe back. But did you have anything else that you want to add, Ms. Cara?
To protect me and support me should I ever find myself in a situation. Hopefully we never do, but if we do, you want good people in your corner. So I'm really proud of our team, and I really love work with. That says a lot about our company, that we were able to have the attorneys that we do work.
I have to agree with you about that. That is also one of my, for lack of a better word, lack of a better statement to say, sales pitch to anyone for U.S. Law Shield is the fact that the lawyers are so awesome. I have had the pleasure of speaking to a few different lawyers that is with the company, and I can tell you that I've been explained the process also how they vet these lawyers. They're literally sitting in their cases, multiple cases, watching, them winning and losing and how they're handling this and how they're handling that before they ask them to be a part of US Law Shield. So there's a long process that happens before. It's not like they're just applying and joining US Law Shield, I guess team. They don't. They literally pick which lawyers they want to be a part of US Law Shield, and it's based on the service that they're providing already. So that's one of the things that works for me. Now, this last question I seen here is, so why not USCCA? Very good question, Michael. Thank you for asking that.
I'm not going to put down any competition at all. I'm just going to reiterate that we are the original legal defense for self-defense company, that we started because we wanted to support people and fill this void, this much needed protection for people.
Mhm. That's what I love. That's exactly what I love about US Law
So
Shield. It's the fact of how it got started, the fact that they take care of picking the attorneys that are for this, they do this, they live and breathe this, and I really love that. So it sounds like you guys are not hearing her, and that's okay. I think we've gotten a lot of the message out of what she was trying to say here. So, Miss Cara, if you are still hearing me, you can jump back on for a second if you can, but if you can't, it's okay. Please stay on. You can stay in the chat area if you would like, and answer any questions. If you feel like you want to jump in the chat area, that is fine. Okay, I see you trying to join back now, so that works. So I'm going to tell you guys my piece of US Law Shield versus other competitors. I have had the opportunity over the 14 years, I might be wrong, 12 or 14 years that we've been in service. And we've had other companies to try to have us to come over to their legal team or their side, rather, their company, like USCCA and others. And every time I'm like listening to these people, I'm reading the documents that they're giving me. Every time I'm like, no, US Law Shield is better. And the reason why is I find that other companies do pay well to the company that is helping promote them, such as it would be Trouble Defense, for example, would be getting a good amount of money from the other company, okay? And that would make a lot of instructors gravitate to other companies. I'm not going to pinpoint a specific company, okay? But what I'm going to tell you is I decided to take the lesser pay to help my students. I feel like they actually do offer, US Law Shield does offer the better service. And that is what I stand by. So, all right. So, Miss Carr, it's okay. You're having issues. We're going to have Miss Joe join us, Mr. Joe join us back here. Okay. So, Attorney Joe, if you can join us back here, that would be great. It's your turn back up. I know we had one that was a little upset that you left. Oh, I see Miss Carr is joining back again. Okay.
am I connecting?
Yes. So I don't know if you had some last words you wanted to say, but I want to bring Attorney Joe back in.
I just wanted to thank you again for partnering with us and for bringing us on tonight, for bringing Joe on, and for myself as well. And if anyone has questions about US Law Shield, I'm going to drop my email below. Sheena also has, her codes, her promo codes, and things like that, so she can always hook you up as well. The only thing I wanted to mention earlier that I forgot to mention is as far as reciprocity. I know a lot of you guys are probably in Virginia. If you are in Maryland and have a Maryland wear and carry permit, there are other states that will recognize the Maryland permit for reciprocity more so than the opposing way. So just
Mhm.
keeping that in mind, if you do have your Maryland wear and carry, it is reciprocal, but still call that non-emergency line to make sure when you're traveling that you can take a route that is legal for you when you are carrying. And if you have legal questions about that specifically, Joe would be the person to ask.
Yes, definitely. All right. So, Miss Cara, you'll stick around with us for a little bit in the
Yeah, I'll
chat
be
box?
listening. Yep. Thank you
Okay,
so
great.
much.
All right. Thank you. All right. All right, Miss Attorney Joe, you can go ahead and join back here then. So it looks like she's off, and then he should be able to join back in. That's the goal here. All right. So, but yes, you guys, I'm so happy with this conversation because this is something that I really strive to make sure that everybody that I'm speaking to has the resources. And this is the resource right here. Besides knowing how to defend yourself properly with marksmanship, it's about when and when not to use it. It does no good for you to just have the marksmanship. So now that we have Attorney Joe back, there was some things that were said right when you left. Someone was like, "No, bring him back. Don't let him leave."
Well, I'm glad to be back. So, you
All
know,
right. So
yeah.
okay, so now I'll say, okay, so I'm just trying to look back at these messages here because somebody was making a comment about them being military and
Mm.
that they weren't afraid and that it was just them actually acting out of duty, I guess, that being prepared and knowing how to defend themselves. So I was just thinking about those comments there. So it is definitely more than just knowing how to defend yourself and knowing how to use a gun. It's about knowing when is the appropriate time to use it. So with that being said, I would like to ask you, Attorney Joe, how is having a concealed carry perceived in court? Like when
Sure.
you're fighting those cases, how is that perceived?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, Sheena. And it's different in different places. There are some, like in DC, for example. A lot of the kind of examples I was given with law-abiding citizens coming into the district, getting arrested. A lot of times, those clients, I end up, I'm able to get certain types of agreements where they do community service, and then the government ultimately ends up dropping the case. So there is some recognition, even by prosecutors who, in my experience, who are can be very unreasonable. So they do sometimes recognize the circumstance. They understand that to get a concealed carry permit, um, you have to go through a pretty, especially, in a lot of states, you have to go through a pretty rigorous background check. So for the mere fact that you might have one in Maryland, but you're in DC with a gun illegally, there is some recognition. And especially if you don't have a criminal record, you've never been arrested before, they might look at that more favorably. There are other places where it doesn't matter, like Baltimore City. If you get arrested, if in Baltimore City, and even if you have a wear and carry permit in Maryland, they don't care. Like they're going to look at you as if you're just some person, illegally carrying a weapon or using a weapon or brandishing a weapon. So it depends. Other places in Maryland, Anne Arundel County, they might look a little more favorably upon you if you have a carry permit. Howard County, Montgomery County, they're so anti-gun and they hate guns so much it really doesn't matter to them. So it kind of depends on where you're at, and it always also kind of depends on the facts and circumstances of why you're in the criminal justice system. You know,
Mhm.
if it's because you fired a warning shot because somebody said something you didn't like, doesn't matter how many permits you have, they're going to be looking to throw the book at you. If you dipped in to DC inadvertently, and then you got pulled over, and yeah, you're going to be looked at probably a little bit different than an individual who has a rap sheet or has prior arrests and prior convictions. And so there can be some there can be some positive view, but again, and I can't stress this enough, if you're in the criminal justice system, like I said, even if you lose or even if you win, you're losing. It's just, you want to avoid ever finding yourself in that situation, and you certainly want to have legal protection if you do.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on why you said that? Why do you feel that way? If someone's in that system already, they kind of lose.
Sure. So if you're a defendant in a criminal case, you likely have spent the night in jail. You're likely have an uncertain future. You're likely unsure about how your employer is going to react, unsure how your family is going to react. You might not know whether you're going to go to jail. The court's going to impose all these obligations onto you, even before you get convicted. Both DC and Maryland have these like pretrial requirements, where it's almost like you have a probation officer before you even get convicted of something. And so it's not I mean, we have what's called the presumption of innocence in the US, but on a practical, like, it's a theoretical thing. Like, on a practical level, when people see someone in the criminal justice system, oftentimes they're looking at that going, well, they must have done something, you know. And
Yeah.
it's not what our constitution's built on. It's not how it's supposed to be, And I often have clients, especially clients who've never been in the system. They always ask me, like, well, can they do this? Well, can they do that? Or how can they do this? Doesn't the Constitution say this? Or doesn't the Constitution say that? And it's like, yeah, there's how things are supposed to be, and there's how things actually are.
Yeah.
Now it's worse if you don't have good legal representation, because
Mhm.
you're going to be treated a certain way by the police. You're going to be treated a certain way by the prosecutors. You're going to be treated a certain way by the judges. But you want to have a criminal defense attorney in your corner that cares about your situation, that wants to fight for you, or and sometimes it's negotiate for you. There's some cases there you're fighting them tooth and nail, filing motions, making discovery requests, trying to just be as big of a pain to the prosecutors and to the system as possible. And there's some cases where you're just begging and negotiating and trying to get the best you can for the client, because they may have them dead to rights, and then that's often in these situations where people get pulled over and arrested for carrying a pistol without a license, or for for not doing their due diligence and learning about the gun laws of where they're going. Because, like I mentioned before, this example, somebody from North Carolina drives into DC to go see the monuments with their family. They get pulled over and they immediately tell the officer they have a firearm. Well, they've just confessed to the crime inadvertently, and so there's really not much of a defense to that. So in those type of cases, I'm not really fighting. It's more like negotiating, and anything I can point to that's favorable in their background, whether it's employment, whether it's military service, whether it's having a lawful concealed carry permit from a different jurisdiction, that all that stuff is going to help in the negotiation and help mitigate, what ends up happening.
So let's go to some of these questions here. Have you noticed that some races get charged heavier than others when it comes to gun laws?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, I have a YouTube channel also, and I unfortunately don't post as many videos as I should because I'm too busy in court. But I did a whole video on our gun laws racist, and I absolutely, especially in big urban cities like DC, Baltimore, New York, there was a very interesting Supreme Court case that came out that I'm sure a lot of gun owners know about, called Bruin. Bruin is a major Supreme Court case that pretty much like elevated the Second Amendment above other constitutional rights. And the holding of Bruin was that, states where you have what's called may issue as opposed to shall issue, they held that was unconstitutional. And what may issue meant is that in states like Maryland and DC some years ago, New York, they had a rule that said if you want to get a concealed carry permit, you have to demonstrate that you have a special need distinguishable from the general public for self-defense. Okay. Now, a
Yeah.
very interesting thing happened in the Bruin case. It was like the New York State NRA, or it wasn't the NRA, it was the New York something or other, were the plaintiffs in this case. But there were all these public defender organizations, including the Black Public Defenders Association in New York, that filed what are called amicus briefs supporting the gun owners and the plaintiffs in the Bruin case. You know, and it's because criminal defense lawyers, particularly criminal defense lawyers that represent indigent defendants or defendants that can't afford an attorney, they see how a lot of these big cities, DC included, they use the gun laws to disproportionately arrest people of color. And that's something that, I read some of their amicus briefs that were, and they were given examples of specific clients that they represented and the things that they went through being arrested for just for possessing a gun, living in a dangerous neighborhood, possessing a gun for self-defense, and just the kind of terror that happened to their lives going through the criminal justice system. And, it's completely consistent with what I've seen as a criminal defense lawyer. And I did that kind of work early on in my career, representing people that can't afford a lawyer. And I absolutely was shocked on how people were treated. And, gun laws oftentimes are used to disproportionately arrest Black people. And that's, I see that, and so I do agree with that. Absolutely.
Thank you for your honesty and thank you for giving some clarity. And we do have some research, you guys. You have to go and look at Attorney Joe's channel
Right.
and find that. So I'm gonna put that
The
link
subtle
in the
plug,
description.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put that link in the description so people can be able to go and check it out and get the full details of what you're sharing there. Because that definitely sounds like a very interesting conversation we all need to have and understand so we can navigate through it, honestly. So I see that we had a question that was answered. Thank you so much, Miss Cara. Thank you for answering that. And hey, Noble Eric, thanks for joining. So what I would like to say in closing here, what we all hear about tonight is simply about traveling. The holidays are up, a lot of people are traveling, and one of the things I want to make sure you guys have in the forefront of your brain is you being a firearm owner, the closest people to you most likely know this. Your loved ones, your family, your best friends, and things of that nature. So don't put yourself in a situation where you're drunk and high off of the evening of the holiday festivities that you get a little bit irate, and then your family members or your friends are the ones that are seeing you as a threat, because they're going to see you as a threat anytime you step out of what they feel is your normal character or any type of aggression, and they're going to feel that you are a threat simply because they know you are a firearm owner. So definitely, one of the things that myself and Attorney Joe was talking about was that, be mindful of that as you are celebrating with your loved ones, that you may be seen as a threat immediately because they know you own a firearm.
And we talked about this as well, and I've seen a lot of these cases, and people who do have concealed carry permits have to really be careful because, um, you know, people make false allegations in the criminal justice system. People absolutely, people have an axe to grind. People are angry. People are upset. Sometimes it's a toxic relationship. Sometimes it's family members get into a dispute, and if they know you have a concealed carry permit, they can very easily, or if they know that you carry, they know you have a firearm, they can very easily make an accusation that you pulled your firearm. I've gotten, a lot of emergency calls with US Lawshield exactly in those types of situations where it's like the member is like, I absolutely did not pull my firearm, but it's someone who knew them, who got super upset at them. And so when they go and tell the police, oh, he did this or she did this, and oh, and by the way, he has a gun or she has a gun, and they describe it or they know it, and the police in their mind, they think, oh wow, they're really corroborating like what happened because the person does actually have a gun. But it's something to be very mindful of and to be careful of. And especially in the holiday season, people are drinking more. Family can be stressful, and so you definitely don't want to spend Christmas Eve in the metal bed, with the bologna, with the 2-week-old bologna sandwich. Like, keep it peaceful at the holidays. Avoid politics. Just be easygoing and be safe out there.
Thank you for that. And I would like to add to that the fact that if someone is in need in a holiday season such as this, US Law Shield is still going to be there for you. So that's a plus. They're
That's
not going to
right.
close because it's Christmas Day or New Year's Eve. They're going to be available for you regardless, whenever your emergency is, 2, 3 o'clock a.m. in the morning. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I know Attorney Joe doesn't like to be pulled from his family those hours, but
My,
he is.
my my wife doesn't like it when I have to step away and answer the emergency call, but she understands and knows. It's duty
Thank
calls.
you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Scrofano. Thank you so much for allowing Attorney Joe to help us out here because we need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, Tina, it's been
Yeah.
an absolute pleasure once again. It's been really good to be here and to talk with you. So,
Yes, it has. I love this discussion with you, and I really feel like we're helping people out there. And if you guys feel like this has been helping, please give us a thumbs up on the channel on this particular video here, and please share and like it, love it, please. I'm definitely just out here just trying to change things, help people get a little bit more enlightened, and understand that the gun community is not the devilish people they tend to make us out to be. And one of the parts of that is just literally making sure that we have the knowledge so that we know how to behave. Because sometimes we just get a little bit, antsy, depending on what's going on, right? But as long as we keep our knowledge right, then we'll be good and we'll make great decisions. So,
what they say, knowledge is power.
yes.
Absolutely. So,
Thank you. Well, you
yep.
guys have a good night, and I'm not going to hold y'all any longer. I look forward to seeing you guys next week for another great discussion. Next week, I have some other special guests, and you guys are just going to have to wait to see. You're going to have to see me at 8 o'clock for you to find out who it is, what we're talking about. It's fun like that, right? And so, look forward to seeing you guys again next week. And Attorney Joe, blessings to you and your family. Thank you so
You,
much again for doing this good
you,
work that you're doing.
you as
And
well.
thank
And
you,
thanks for everybody thanks for everybody for watching. As lawyers love to talk when they have an audience. So I'm appreciate all the people who are commenting and who sat and listened to us talk. So appreciate it.
Yes.
Yep.
And thank you so much, Miss Cara, for giving us US Law Shield information through and through. I do my best to try to sell. I'll probably sell like a car salesman, honestly, but I always feel like I feel so much more at peace when I have an official US Law Shield representative to express all the things because you guys do such a great job. So thank you for giving this information.
All right.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
You
See y'all
too.
next week.
Take care. Yep.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.